This is about bullying as a social phenomenon. It's on the positions of bullying and how we stand when we see something or someone related to bullying is going on. And basically, bullying is about teasing, excluding, bringing a person into a negative situation where his or her image is reflected badly, a kind of deprivation of the rights of the other person, mostly kids, and but can also be grown-ups, and their self mirroring will become very much vulnerable that they are not good enough or they are bad or they are not really worthy of the inclusion of the group. And so it's a kind of phenomena, because phenomena is when it is something you really can't explain and goes beyond what should be the normal situation. At the same time, we cannot exclude that it's not happening in the world of animals and insects as well. We do not know enough to say that it doesn't happen by 100%, but we know that we can see the signs of it as in the same way as we know from human relations. And it's a big problem in many modern societies, but also in traditional ones, that bullying takes over in the groups and between people. And there are stories from all around the world where some people have felt they have been pushed outside or not welcomed or being put in a very bad light and exposed or maybe laughed, not maybe, but also laughed at and teased to do something so they could expose their bad sides, and that has been used against them. And so it's a kind of exclusion mechanism to say who's in and who's out. And there are four basic positions in those mechanisms and the way they work. The first one is the viewers. There are the people who are bullying, and then there are the the ones bullied, and then there are the ones who are the viewers, and then there is a fourth position called the bully victim in a way, and we will go through these one by one. So when there is bullying going on, there is someone who's taking the lead on that, and that's called the bullier. It's the person who is the direct cause of somebody else being excluded and reflected in a bad way, so that others in the group should not accept him or her and keep him or her out. And then there are the people watching and participating in silence, like they agree on what's said, they do not react to it, and they become part of that bullying group. And sometimes you have somebody who does not accept that bullying that's happening to the other, and so they can be at the same time bulliers and victims for bullying, or they can be those who become the friend of the bullied and react totally to the group's dominance and culture and way of excluding the other. And so they can also become exposed or isolated and punished for their lack of solidarity with that group that is leaving someone outside for one reason or another, maybe the behavior of that person, the looks, the background, whatever it is. And so we see that there are two groups: the active, the ones who go into the bullying, and they go on with it and they try to expand it and they laugh and share and contribute. And then there are the passive ones that really does not share the bullying mentality, but just are viewers, or maybe not even aware that it is going on, and they do not interfere in it and doesn't have the guts to do so, or thinks that it's not necessarily, or do not take it seriously enough. The people who are bulliers have often been seen doing direct things, and especially using words and talks and actions that puts the bullied in a very bad light and situation. They are the initiative takers. They try to put themselves in the center of attention and power by using that victim of bullying as a case, as a cause for gathering the group around them. And so they become the dominant person who is like the bullying dog, if you can say, and they stand mostly in the top of the hierarchy. They cannot always understand why they are doing that, what's going on inside them. Sometimes it's hidden feelings of jealousy or lack of empathy, and maybe they need to be important for the group. And so they find this way very feasible and possible to gain what they want by, because the other part is weak and isolated, and they can be isolated even more. And maybe some of them thinks that it's okay because the others are not saying anything. That means, well, it's okay. They all share the same view. She is not good enough. He is not the right person. Uh, um, and so maybe these bulliers sometimes think that what they are doing is totally normal and socially accepted, and within the boundaries of how things work. So it's not always that they do it because of evilness, that they want to destroy someone, but they do it anyhow. They get to destroy the other person's feelings, um, relation to the group, self confidence, and the ability to be included. And sometimes they do it on purpose because they know that it has that effect on the other, but they have something more to gain from it. So the bullier is not just a simple prototype of the evil who is just trying to destroy the other. It can be persons who also have losses in their life, are feeling shallow and not really important, and finds this way of gathering people around him or her by taking on this bullying ways of doing things. And sometimes, as said, they do not really know that it has the consequences it can have for the other's feeling. They lack the empathy and understanding. And it sounds strange that a person, especially when they start to be teenagers and grown-ups, that they do not understand this, but that's the level of human understanding, sometimes very, very limited. And then there is the victims of the bullying. And some of them, they really react badly to this and withdraw totally from social sphere and avoid any contact and go into themselves. And some can get very strong signs of depression, and they want and the need to get out of this life, and they don't want to continue anymore, and they see themselves as they were shown by that group that bullied them. So everybody that laughed at them in the schoolyard, and the people who excluded them or just watched and sent them those secret signals that, oh yeah, you are strange, you are looking weird, you are very this, very that, accordingly to the bullier's version, they take it on them and they put it as part of their identity and start seeing it in themselves in the mirror. And some will try to do something about it and get back, and many will just succumb to it and feel that they are not worthy of it, they are not good enough, they have never been, and so they become the accepting part of that bullying because that's what they think that they deserve. And this is something that studies has showed, that how they react to these things. Mostly they are just sad and feeling outside the group and the inclusion of the norms in the culture around them. They can feel very, very lonely and sad, isolated, wanting to just leave everything. At the same time, they can go into a mood of creativity, and being a good friend to one or two persons, mostly from outside that place where they are bullied, but that gives them a kind of compensation or a kind of feeling good that can compensate for what's going on in the place where they have to be until they can get out of it. And so most of them feels powerless and feel that they are guilty of what they said about them, or that if they weren't really weird, people wouldn't have said that, and those bullies wouldn't have had the chance to do so. And so they also put themselves in that way of looking at themselves, as was opposed on them from the majority. They overtake the majorities or the group's picture of them, and they become like self indulging in that picture and repeating it, affirming it, and just living with it as if it was true, because they falter and fail to see that they are different for a reason, and maybe they do not look like the others, but because somebody else looks like them exist out there, they are just not around to make it look like a group and a big group of persons. and maybe they lack to understand that they can do something about it, and they can go a place where they are more liked for who they are and the way they are, and can develop by that, instead of keep fighting for the norms that these other people and groups around them has put, that they should try to live up to, and maybe they will fail altogether to live up to anything, because the goal of the bullying is not to make people better, but just to degrade them to a situation where they cannot fight back, and where they become submissive in many ways to the will of the others, or just out of the way, out of the mind. Some people can be, they say, watchers, and they can be positive or negative. People who watch the bullying can at the same time either be positive or negative. And positive, it can be negative in its way, and it can be passive in another way. So they can go on and participate and cheer and laugh and say the things, repeat them, help with them, all this bullying stuff that's going on, and they become part of the bullying group. And that's because many of them are like following the alpha, the person in charge, and they want to like attach to that strong girl or boy who is bullying that very weak and weird sorrow of a distorted human, or whatever they look at it. And by keeping close to that person and accepting the bullying and sharing it and participating in it, they become part of the strong group and part of what's normal. And so that way they have secured themselves not to be bullied either, because they can be shallow just underneath the surface, and they can feel, well, it could have been me, but fortunately it's not. So let me affirm my way of behaving by sharing and participating. That's how I show my strengths and loyalty to the group and to the person in charge. And those are the positive ones, the ones active in bullying. Then there are the passive watchers, and those are most of the other people who just walk by and say, what a sad story, or I feel sorry for him or her, but they do not interfere or try to do anything, maybe because they cannot stand up to that group, or maybe they will be in danger themselves, or they do not really think they need to do anything. It's not their problem, not their business. This is happening to someone else. You're just watching it, like seeing it on a mobile phone, or from distance. And they lack both the courage and the morals, as they say, to go and do something about it, or to get hold on some people who can do anything, or to try to befriend that person who is walking alone. Studies has shown a lot of negative results of being bullied. Mostly these people complain of headaches, physical symptoms, being not really relaxed, having stress, aggressiveness that comes in flashes sometimes. They can feel sad or turned inwards. They can lose the ability to concentrate. They can feel isolated socially and very much alone. And they can sit with a very low self esteem. And they can lose the trust in others, become very suspicious of who other people are or what they want. They can feel guilty also, and lose the happiness about life, get depression and thoughts about suicide, and just wanting everything to end. And some of them can turn it all around and become part of the aggressive bullying of others. So they look to those who are even weaker than themselves and find themselves in a new situation where the bullying group is not there, but they are, and they are the strongest ones among some other weirdos or people who are not normal in their eyes. And so they start bullying others using the same mechanics, techniques and dynamics that this bullying group has been using against them. Some of them becomes violent and go into criminal activity, and in many ways get a distorted self-esteem and understanding of their role in society. People who are just watching, they can many times feel guilty, or bring forward that state of carelessness in society, that nobody takes action or responsibility, and everyone is imitating the other, by everyone standing still and watching, doing nothing, then going on, passing on to their own business, maybe thinking, well, it was his or her fault. Why should he come dressed like that? Why couldn't he stop eating so much? Why is his hair like that? And so on and so on. Um, and in that way, they just make excuses for what's going on and go on doing what else they are in their life, watching the scene go by without any attention or reaction. And in that way, they are affirming the situation of that injustice going on just around them. And all it needed has also shown that one person could have stood out and said no in the crowd, or said stop it, or this is no good. And the others would most likely also have been inspired by that and could say, listen, this is not good, I agree, stop that, and so on. And it becomes a force that this bullying group could not be dealing with so easily. But that doesn't happen so much because most people are reluctant and silent and do not want to put themselves in any situation that can be unpleasant for themselves. And so they think by avoiding that, that they are doing the right thing. Not there are some authorities, some other people have the responsibility. It's not my responsibility. And so that's how bullying actually also spread and becomes a social phenomena or social virus in many places because many people just do not do anything about it in time. The bullier himself or herself is also many times changing during that process from being that agreeable, nice person to becoming more and more respectless and using fear as a tool even against the members of that bullying group. And sometimes they become the tyrants who loses the trust of people around them and make them feel unhappy, and suddenly they just transform into something they didn't know they were, and it becomes also an internally trouble to those around them and the people who started gathering around them in the beginning against that who was bullied. And so the group starts to dissolve and get their critical ideas on who she thinks she is and why she's doing that, and now she's lashing out towards members of the group like she's doing with the others. So she will basically go and use those mechanisms in the same group that she had used against the others. And that will sooner or later provoke a reaction from some of these people in the group because they feel stronger, more confident, and they cannot accept that kind of bullying techniques against them. They could accept them against others, but not against them. That's double morals, but that's how it is. And so they can feel that they have changed from being something to being something else. And some of them can change back with dialogues and talks and some help. And some can just go on and go on until everything breaks around them and they become very lonely and very isolated, even, that's ironically, even from the people who used to cheer on them and see them as cool and nice people. The people who both are bullied and bullying uh, can get a complex relationship to themselves and other that needs some kind of special attention because they are going to use the same bullying technique to provoke those negative feelings in others that they have felt. It's like they are projecting their way of saying, well, this is what I feel, now you get to feel it because you're lower, you're worse than me, and I will start bullying you. And so that's why psychiatrists and psychology says that the problem with bullying and suppression is that the suppressed very easily becomes the suppressors. I'm not sure whether it was Viktor Frankl, or somebody close to that school, Joseph Conrad maybe, or somebody of those psychiatrists who dealt with these things. I'm not sure who said it. But mostly they will be both bullied and then go and bully others because in that way they can see how the effect is on the others and what feelings it brings forward in them. And at the same time, when they are bullied, well, they feel what they do, so they change roles from the position of being a victim and to a position of being the bullier. And so this social phenomena that is really widespread, especially in what I know about in well-developed welfare countries, where people really try to use it as an identity marker or as a place of showing power and showing who they are and who they are not. and this distinguishing weakness from strength. It's a bad and strange way to do it, but that's what's happening. And I know of my personal life and people I've met in the East and Middle East that this happens as well. There is this you do not belong idea that can develop into a bullying, but it's more under control because the rules there are more strict and maybe more dangerous. The consequences are far worse, and there are another kind of values that sometimes lay behind why people do not do it the same way. I'm not saying that it's better values. I'm just saying it's different kind of values that makes people adhere to some sort of social order and understanding that maybe can be lacking in the places where this phenomena is very widespread. This could be very well studied in sociology, and maybe it has been something I'm not aware of. So, what to do about it? Basically, it's about working with the person's inner self and the group's relation with others and themselves. It's all about the personal development of that person and the development of empathy, the understanding on how other feels and how our actions and ways of behavior affects the other people and why we should be compassionate. And these things can be worked out and worked on together with these people and groups, and most will be sensible and develop from it and understand that it can have bad consequences for the other person but also for themselves. Some will be very egoistic and only react because it has consequences for themselves and never really develop that sense of compassion to the other person who has been bullied, because they see it's not my problem. I'm the better one. I'm the son of those who are worthy. And only by threatening them, taking their goods or their trip or whatever they like, they would maybe change that behavior. In any way, there are ways to make a change in a good way in society and then go into an interaction by letting them reflect on how that would be if it was them that was in that situation. And they can change a lot of people just relating to the case that it could have been me in another situations, because they can't imagine how it feels or maybe what it does to others, or that they could possibly become the ones who could be bullied or are lacking something that these bullied people have. They can't imagine that. And by making them understand that, you get over a lot of these problems. But many times there are very failed programs for this, even though there are a lot of studies on it and there are people in schools and institutions working with doing something about it. In my opinion and belief, it has been too little and too failed and too fragmented and too fragile. What can you say? Too shallow, not really deep and good caring. Some places it has been very well because of some really help, like we have in Denmark from the Mary Fund. She has been working on a very inspirational program, like with experts in this area, to make this bullying a less problem than it is in the schools, and work with it already from the basics, from the small classes, and start developing a sense of compassion and understanding already there, and dealing with it all the way up. And so wherever society has really put focus on it, there can be ways and programs that will really help minimizing that problem. And then we need sociological studies to know, and some kind of statistics to know whether this has helped or not, or the situation is continuing and what to do about it then. In my opinion, it's about values. It's about how we think about power and position and glamour, and what kind of symbolic attitude we think is cool and good. And this will reflect on our behavior towards kids and people around us as well. So it's also a society problem behind the lines, that the exclusion of those who do not fit in the normality of the view of the majority, or the group that thinks they are the most normal and valued ones. And so it needs a deeper dig into that development process of identity and how they look at themselves, how they understand the world and others in it. That needs a lot of attention and a lot of stories, so they can relate to pain, suffering, exclusion, stigmatization, and why that has a negative impact also out of sheer egoistic and rational reasons. So, if nothing else, then because this can destroy their ability to connect correctly to others. And that's what happens a lot of time. That's the irony of it, that these people who develop the bullying techniques, they will develop it so much that they start using it where they shouldn't, and then it will fires back on them and makes them feel lonely or troubled, or maybe lose that sense of importance and leadership that they had in the group before they turned it to bad ways of doing things. So this was basically a very short introduction to bullying and how it works and the four positions of bullying. I hope it was and it is helpful for someone or inspiring in some way for others to dig deeper in, or just to get a picture of how this is, how the dynamics of it is.